Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. True stories of people going through the journey of life. We wake up one morning and think everything's going to go fine, and then something dramatically happens that changes the course of our lives. Our special guests today are Ron and Karen Hendricks from Lyndon, Washington, which is just a little town south of the Canadian border. They got an exciting story of God intervening in their life, opening and closing doors. And we're glad to have you here. Ron and Karen, it's good to have you here. We got people from around the world that are watching. Want to learn a little bit about you. So tell us where you're from.
Sure. Well, Karen and I both grew up in Lyndon, Washington, a town of about 3,000 people.
3,000 people.
Dairy farms.
And Lyndon is where now?
Lyndon is 10 miles from the Pacific Ocean and 3 miles from the Canadian border. So we're way up north in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State.
Okay.
Grew up there.
You both grew up. Now, did you know each other growing up, or it's a small town?
Small town, met each other in high school, and Karen was a year younger than I. We started dating.
She's still a year younger.
She's still a year younger than she is. And we started dating and graduated from high school. She went off to nursing school, and I went to a vocational school for a year, and then just went to work at a department store. Karen graduated from nursing school.
And where did you go for nursing school, Karen?
Tacoma General Hospital.
Tacoma. So you went south, still in Washington, and finished your nursing degree, and then you guys have maintained the contact, have been dating when she went away to school, apparently. Been dating in high school.
Dating in high school. We dated while she was in college as well.
Okay.
So
maintain that contact. When you spot the right person, you got to hang on to them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So after she gets out of nursing school, did you get married?
We got married in 1973.
Okay.
The day after I graduated.
The day after. Well, that's about what happened with my wife and I. She graduated. We got married just a few weeks later.
Yeah.
So, but you're working in an apartment store.
I was working at a department clothing store, actually,
clothing store.
in downtown Lyndon.
Okay.
And just learned the trade, learned the business as you do.
Did you start working, Karen, as a nurse then?
I did.
In Lyndon?
Uh-huh.
They have a hospital in Lyndon.
No, they don't.
Okay.
They have a care center.
They have a care center.
Yeah.
All right.
So
and
that
it was
was
a small town, 3,000. How many people are there now?
It's about 12,000.
Yeah, and you're still living there.
Still live there.
All right. So your family's still there, and your kids are there. How many children do you have?
That's right. We have 3 children.
And how many grandchildren?
All married with 7 grandchildren.
7 grandchildren. And how many granddaughters do you have?
We have 6.
You have 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson. And I think that's significant because we have 7 grandchildren. We have 6 boys and 1 granddaughter. So we need to maintain contact.
It's a good match.
Right.
Yes, we do.
So you're working in this department store. What happens then?
Well, as time moves on, I learn more and become more than a clerk and start buying and taking some personal ownership and want the actual physical ownership. And so 3 years later, I approached the owner and said I'd like to buy into.
So you started at the ground floor.
Started the ground floor.
Worked your way up.
Through the buying and became a 30% owner after 3 years. And
so what did you tell the owner? You wanted to buy in or you're going to get out?
I said I'd like to buy in or I'm going to move on.
Really?
And he says, well, let's have you buy in. So he sold me 30% of the business and continued on. And in 1983, we opened another store 2 doors down.
So what are you doing? I mean, what is your role in this?
So my role at that point was buyer for the men's department.
Okay.
And kind of a general manager for a store. So as we opened the next store, I approached him again 3 years later and said, I would like to buy you out, or I'd like to move on.
You told him that?
And he would said, that's a good idea. You go ahead and buy me out, and he would move on.
Really?
Which was wonderful. So that was 1986.
So how long have you been in the store at that point?
Been in the store 16 years at that point.
16 years, and you bought him out. So now you're the owner of 1 store or 2 stores?
1 store.
1 store.
1 store, and we maintained that until the year 2000. And it's like God tapped us.
So how many years were you there then in total?
That 30 years.
30 years.
Total.
And 14, 15 as owner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then why did you sell out?
It's like God called us out. We had a great life. We loved retail. We loved the buying, the selling, the
So
business.
the business is going well.
Business is going well. We had lots of great employees who had been with us over 20 years. But it was like God said, you're too much in control of your life. You've got your own salary. You've got your time. You've got your business.
Everything's wrapped up
I'm
in.
going to call you out of that. And so
you had this sense that God was calling you out.
we both did, actually.
So did you want to sell the business?
No, we talked about selling it, but as I did a business plan, we could actually come out stronger financially by liquidating, maintaining the building, and hopefully being able to rent that for an income in retirement.
Well, now, I'm sure over those years you'd established a good relationship in the community.
Yeah.
And you were indicating to me privately that one of the concerns you had as you sold it, that it was you still had your name attached to it.
Yeah.
And what was your fear?
Well, in a small community, you are that store, and if you can sell it to somebody else, if they don't maintain that same quality of customer service, it's a reflection on you. And we really did not want somebody coming back to us a year later saying how we had not treated them fairly or their family fairly. So the best solution really was to liquidate at that point in time. And we did. God opened that door. And
Liquidated the whole thing.
whole thing. So in Washington State, you were allowed to have a liquidation sale for up to 90 days. So that's the way we posted it, and that's the way we started it. And
90 days, you're going to get rid of everything.
But Lynn, the beauty of that is the first 3 days, we started in February. First 3 days, we sold more than we did the entire February the year before. And
Oh,
so
you're kidding.
another week went on, and I came home to Karen. I says, you know, this is not going to last 90 days. It's like God reached in and just started sucking stuff out. We were that busy. And we were at the second 30 days into it, and we were almost to the bare walls.
So how old were you at this point?
I was 50.
I would imagine people were thinking you're going through a midlife crisis.
And they did.
Did they?
Absolutely. So we anticipated that.
You had no plans beyond there.
Well, we didn't need plans. God had carried us 30
You were
years
absolutely convinced
in
that God was
retail.
behind this whole thing.
Absolutely.
What were you thinking, Karen?
We've both felt the same way, because we had the sense that God had touched us both on the shoulder at the same time. So we said, let's go forward, not knowing what the future
What
held.
forward was?
But we decided to be positive, and our answer always was, the Lord has kept us 30 years in retail, which is high energy and, lots of stress. If he's shepherded us through this time, we can't wait to see what's
So
in
you're
store
kind of
for
anxious.
us.
You've turned
We were
everything over. This
excited.
business belongs to the Lord. You've sold it. You've liquidated it in an amazing amount of time. And no plans for the future. Just waiting for God.
Karen had plans to take some time off.
She was going to take some time
She would have
off.
liked that.
I guess you wanted to go to Europe or
I would have liked to
something?
tour Europe for 3 months or
yeah.
some grand thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But what happened?
That would have been the first time we had time to do anything, because we were coming
Because
out
you've
of
been working,
retail.
working.
And so I had people start approaching me and ask me what I was going to do, and they started offering me jobs. So I started writing
Out of the
things
blue.
down out of the blue. Our testimony was carried in all of our marketing, because we had done radio and TV and newspaper, and it carried that testimony about how God would care for us. And so people started calling and saying, we'd like to talk to you, we'd like to talk to you. Well, about 2 weeks after we did finally close, I was ready to do something. I was not ready to
2 weeks gone by, no work, no place to go, and you're kind of antsy.
Kind of antsy and saying, okay, let's get going.
What are we
And
going to do?
My current employer, Trinity Western University, called and said, we'd like to talk to you. So we had breakfast, and we had a dinner, and we continued the conversations.
Now, where's Trinity?
Trinity Western is located in Langley, British Columbia.
In British
So
Columbia.
It's a faith-based,
It's a faith-based college.
liberal arts university.
Okay.
Yeah,
And somebody made contact with you.
They made contact with us because they had seen the marketing, actually, that we had done, and they were looking for somebody in the U.S. that had business experience, that had experience with finance and being in business. You're working with attorneys, you're working with CPAs, you're working with banking. During that time, I was privileged to serve 2 terms as elder in our church, so they wanted somebody with pastoral experience that solved that. I had 3 terms on the Christian School Board as treasurer, which put me into the investments and the endowments. And it's like God had taken those 30 years and used them all to get us ready.
To prepare you.
Exactly for where he has.
So what did they want you to do? What were they inviting you to do?
They wanted me to build relationships with people in the U.S.
And of course, being in business, that's who you are.
That's not hard.
Yeah.
And just a matter of being relationships for the university, and then in time securing endowed scholarships as the time was right, and that worked into estate planning, end-of-life planning, and it's just been.
So Trinity is associated with which church?
Trinity Western University actually has base roots in Evangelical Free Church.
Evangelical Free Church, okay.
And they have a significant amount of alumni, which means parents of alums and businesses that they own and churches and so
and
that they have.
it's been there for many years?
Been there for 62 years.
Okay, so people have graduated, moved on
Yes.
all across the United States?
Yes.
Is that your territory
That's
now?
correct. My territory is actually the entire United States.
The whole United States.
Realistically.
When you first started off, though, you were not in that capacity.
Well, I was not in the capacity of director or of gift planning, but I was a planning officer. There was still nobody else working in the United States, so it was really just myself.
Okay.
Realistically, it's West Coast because you can't travel the entire United States.
So what did your kids think about this? I mean,
Our kids were a little thought we were a little crazy as well. When we
Weren't
called
sure?
them, yeah, we called them actually and said we want to have a family meeting, and they all kind of pushed us back and they said, we don't want to get together. We said, this isn't about you, it's about us. They came in a hurry. They didn't know what it was about.
what it was all about.
So we sat around the table and we just told them the story that we just talked about, how God's been speaking to us, and well, they weren't going to argue with that.
We're going to,
Yep.
but we're going to sell the business,
Close the business. Absolutely.
your heritage.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're going to sell it. And what are you going to do, Mom and Dad?
That's right.
We don't know. We're going to wait for God to see. So this guy from Trinity shows up based upon what he'd seen, talked to some other people, and learned a little bit about you.
That's right.
So they come and offer you this job.
Yeah.
So how many years ago was that?
That was in 2000, May 1, so we're
and
just...
you're still currently there,
There
but now
15th.
you're the director for the whole program.
Director of gift planning
Yeah.
for the U.S. and U.S. Foundation and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
we do.
So and you're able to, and you're traveling all the time then?
We're traveling about half time.
About half the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And you're able to travel with him,
I
which
am.
is pretty nice. All right, so now everything's going along fine. Both of you are in reasonably good health, but something happens. What was it?
well, initially
sell the house.
we had decided to sell our house because we were doing some.
You sold the business,
and then-
then you're going to sell the house?
And we're going to sell the house. We sold the business in 2000. In 2011, we sold the house because we were doing volunteer work at a homeless shelter. And it's really the same thing. Our home was too much about us. We didn't have time to serve at this homeless shelter. So we sold the house. So the house actually
So
sold.
you sold your business, you sold your
Sold the
house,
house,
you're
sold-
getting rid of all your roots.
Yeah, all the stuff, actually.
And how did you feel about this, Karen?
It was good.
It was good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing testimony. It was good. So you sell the house, still no plans to go anywhere.
That's right.
No.
Still not clear what God wants you to do? Is Trinity in the picture at this
So
point?
Trinity's in the picture at that
It's
point,
in the
yeah,
picture,
because
okay.
we're working well with that. So that was in 2011. We moved in June to downsize to a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo. And in July, my dad became ill, passed away. So
So your dad died. You got rid of your business, rid of your home, and now your father dies.
my mom had passed away 2 years earlier, so both my parents were gone. In the end of July, after my dad passed away, I went in for my well check, and my doctor says, "Oh, Ron, I feel something on your prostate. It feels like a nodule. You should go have that checked at your urologist."
Now, what did your father die from?
He died from elderly age. He had dementia, but he had been through a prostate issue.
Oh, he had an issue himself.
and his brothers.
And his
several
brother.
of his brothers actually
Which
had died.
means you've got a very high
Yep.
possibility.
His brothers had died actually from cancer from it.
So did you think you were ever a possible candidate?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you did?
But later.
But much later,
Much
always in
later.
the future.
Yeah.
You know. But when this diagnosis came, and it came back confirmed from the urologist, I had a Gleason score of 7. It was clearly young, early.
Yeah, for our listening audience, you have a Gleason of 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10.
That's
and
correct.
The higher the number, the more aggressive the cancer.
Yeah.
So does he tell you on the phone, or do you go in to see him?
He actually told me on the phone.
Told you on the phone. You got cancer, Ron.
You got cancer, and we need to cut it out.
We need to talk about get rid of it.
I says,
So I want to know, how does this hit Karen?
Yeah.
Well, I bawled most of the afternoon and the next morning and the next day. You just feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you.
His dad has died. Now he's got cancer.
Yeah.
And people die from cancer.
And I was not questioning God or upset with him, but I was thinking ahead immediately. I had him dead.
Yeah,
and I was
am I gonna do
wondering
without
how I
Ron?
would pay the bills, and did I know how to bank online, and how often does one get the car serviced? And
All
what
these
about
things
the
go through.
taxes, all the things that I personally
have
don't
anything to do
do.
with- all of a sudden you're
You
gonna have to
think
assume
about
it all.
those when you're washing dishes.
He's only been diagnosed, but you're already
Yes.
getting ready for the funeral.
Yes.
Well, believe it or not, it's very common for many women. I mean, they're devastated. They get the news. People, cancer. Everybody I've known that had cancer, they die. And so you find out it's not very aggressive, but it's a little bit aggressive. So they want to do surgery, of course.
Went into surgery,
All right.
and then chemo, and then radiation
And
following.
radiation, follow it up.
Well, as I was doing my research and talking to people that had that, I did not like the side effects that went along with any of that. So made a phone call to a friend in Portland, and he had proton at Loma Linda.
Now, did you know that he had proton, or you knew he'd served somewhere?
Well,
or-
I knew that he had proton, but I didn't really know what it was. When he told me the story a year before, I was very nice and polite, and I listened and told him I was sorry.
Glad you had a good
Glad it
experience.
was good, but it wasn't personal until I had my
It
diagnosis.
was his problem. Glad you found an answer to your problem.
Yeah. So I was on the phone saying, Chuck, where's Loma Linda? And how do you spell proton? And I did my own
You
research.
didn't know anything about it.
Didn't know
No,
anything
we
about it.
didn't.
And made the call down to Loma Linda, went on the website. They sent me a packet within 3 days. And that came with a CD and a book.
That's when it took 3 days. We're sending it overnight now.
Yeah, I'll bet. Amazing experience. And-
So you got the packet. I mean, were you clear from the very beginning you wanted to come to Loma Linda?
Well, it was clear that that's what we wanted. However, insurance turned us down.
So the
and
insurance turned you down.
had to do another group of research. And so we had decided that it was important enough that we would actually do a private pay and negotiated a very good price with Loma Linda for private pay rather than
They do
insurance. And then found out we could apply to a secondary insurance, and so went ahead with that, moved down to Loma Linda for 3 months. And during that...
This was 4 years ago.
This was 4 years ago in October, early October through December 15th about, we were here.
I know you didn't come to our Christmas party.
No, I know.
You left early.
I know it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did leave early, but we had a daughter getting married the next
I
week,
know,
so
you
it was
had a
well
lot of stuff
worthwhile.
going on.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of-
So-
So tell us about the experience of
Yeah.
coming here to Loma Linda.
Yeah, you know-
And finally, your insurance thing worked out in an amazing way.
Yeah, and so that really wasn't an issue anymore. But,
But you've seen God leading all the way?
led and opened those doors all the way. But really the beauty for us was when we got here, the compassion that was shown to us surpassed anything we had felt. And we've been in the Christian community all our life. Christian doctors
Say
and
that
churches.
again now. You've been in...
Christian community, grew up as believers and had been in church, in Christian schools and Christian doctors, but we didn't know what compassion meant until we came here.
I'm glad to
Amazing.
hear that.
Even to the point where when I sat with my first appointment, they turned and asked Karen, how are you doing with his cancer? Complete opposite from when we were at home. The doctors wouldn't even answer her questions about my cancer.
Completely different.
Completely
Yes.
different.
Well, Loma Linda, as you've discovered, is a very rare place, a unique culture,
Yeah.
making man whole,
Yeah.
mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. We don't treat a disease, we treat the person.
Yeah, and the way they told us that, those words were there, but they also said, we'll kill the cancer. We do that with protons, but you need to heal. this is how you do it. Emotional meetings, you need to exercise physically, and you need to be in a spiritual group of some kind. Prayer group, Bible study, church, whatever it is. You take care of the healing, and we'll kill the cancer. A philosophy we had never even dreamed was out there.
So how were you relating to all this, Karen?
We just ate it up.
Did
Just
you?
ate it up. We attended, you know, all of the events that were sponsored, but in addition to that, when our very first group meeting for the wives, I can remember, I think her name was Mildred, just went around and asked all of us, what, as a woman, what has been your source of strength since your husband's diagnosis? And the ladies would be answering, well, it'd be my faith or my friends or God or my church. And I thought, by gum, I'm going to say Jesus Christ, because that is the real answer. So
Right.
that was my answer
Yep.
when it was my turn. And after that, I was in the hallway, and 3 ladies of that group came to me and said, Jesus Christ has been my rock too. Do you think we could get together? And because of that, there are 6 couples that got together the whole time that we were
The whole time you
here.
were there?
And every Sunday night we'd get together for prayer, kind of the same format that we had been doing in our own small group in Linden. But because of that, Big Tony came to know the Lord while we were here.
Wonderful.
And we looked at each other now and say, maybe that's why we came to Loma Linda.
Well, there's
it was
many,
not about us.
Many reasons. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's not about you. There's other things that God's got planned. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's only by looking back on it that can you really
Absolutely.
see the whole thing. So what are some of the things you were doing while you were here?
Yeah. I worked full-time. I had no loss of energy. I worked for Trinity Western here locally out of the apartment that we were renting, and
So you're doing paperwork and book
doing
work?
paperwork. I attended all my meetings via Skype and via conference call, and then I would visit donors and prospects and so in the entire area, which I came down here anyhow. It just, we had a lot of really nice sunshine instead of our rain in the Pacific Northwest.
So what kind of an impact did this make on your family?
Yeah, huge.
The kids, I mean, were they pretty sober by the fact that you had cancer?
Oh, absolutely. And
And you're going all the way down to California?
going all the way, and we aren't going to see them or the grandkids during all that time. And it is a sobering. It's a drawing together of relationships, without a doubt. So
I mean, it can do that, or it can push people apart, depending on
it can.
how things go.
But for us, Christ was that solidifying factor. That's where
So all your
the
kids are
trust
actively
is.
involved in a church somewhere. and
Kids are believers,
love the Lord.
love the Lord, and
Makes
we
all the
just,
difference in the world.
Praise God for that.
Yeah.
That's the gift.
Well, what difference has having cancer made in your life now?
Yeah, well, first thing it did is made us more compassionate to other people, more willing to make the phone call to somebody when they're not feeling well, more understanding, more forgiving, showing more grace. It really did change us significantly.
sure.
In fact, to the point where we said we need to be in a body of worship, a church that has different needs than where we were at, actually. It opened our eyes.
You've been in other words, you began looking at even the church that you've been attending differently.
It's a whole body experience. So it impacted our spiritual life as well, without a doubt.
I've heard that happen many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
So definitely a strengthening, not only in body, but in strength, in spiritual life. And
So you ended up leaving the church. It wasn't over any doctrinal issues.
No.
It was just that
it was.
you were telling me you really weren't making the contribution
Right.
there.
It was a good church. There's
Oh,
nothing,
sure.
there's
It still
nothing
is a good
wrong with
church.
it. Still a good church, but we were called out of that. And when we look back, it's like we were called out of our home. We were called out of our business. So
That's amazing,
are you
huh?
going to be obedient or not?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down
When God
to.
opens the door, you have to walk through it when you
gotta walk
recognize
through
that
it.
He's opened the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
So, and are you still part of that church?
Still
This
a
other
part of that
church now?
church. Now we have a new small group.
Growing.
A small
and
group
reaching
is
out
growing.
and
We're
making an impact on the community
co-leaders in that,
people that
and-
need the Lord.
Yeah.
You're finding them
Yeah.
and they're coming. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
And that's part of Loma Linda that shines through us, even to this day, 4 years later, that is impacting, I think, men and women in Washington State because of this.
Do you think he's any different today now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
In what ways?
Like we were saying, it just drew our marriage closer together. It's very interesting to be far away from home and only have each other for support, you know, for all of your activities. And it was like a 3-month date.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
awesome.
people talk about a radiation vacation,
Yeah.
but people come from homes that are 2, 3, 4, 5,000 square feet, and then all of a sudden they're in an 800 square foot apartment 24/7 for
Yeah.
8 or 9 weeks. We call it a testing
Yeah,
period.
it's great.
But it's an opportunity really to
Yeah.
be brought together. Well, in the last minute or so, Ron, I want you to look right into the camera, and people are looking here, and some of this week just found out they've had cancer. What would you tell them in the last minute or so?
Yeah. You know, folks, it's not about you. It's not by accident that you have this cancer. If you've just had a diagnosis, do your research. Don't necessarily listen to what only the doctors that diagnosed you are telling. Call Loma Linda. Absolutely, that was one of the best things I did, is I got on the phone and had the conversation. At least investigate if it's right or not. It might or might not be right for you, but if it is, at least you've given it a chance, and there's hope, and there's hope beyond today.
That's good counsel. Look, get a second opinion. And it's not devastating. It's you found out it's a diagnosis. It's not a death sentence. And
Absolutely.
seek help and support. And God is always right around the corner. For the listening audience, you know, Ron and Karen are wonderful examples of people that have been sensitive to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and they've opened and closed doors and been ready to walk through it. And God is continuing to bless them. And I'm glad to let you know that God's got some wonderful plans for your future. For those of you that are looking on, give God a chance with your life. He's got an amazing plan for you. He'll open and close doors. Be ready and willing to go wherever He leads. And He's going to take you all the way. God's got a plan for each one of our lives. As we cooperate with Him, He will lead us day by day, moment by moment.